Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to episode 12 of Holding the Sticks, a hockey themed fiber arts podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my craft room here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. I'm your host, Emily, and you can find me on Ravelry as Shanti Dragon and on Plurk and Twitter as Emily3022. I would like to thank everyone this week who has been in contact with me on Ravelry, participated in the Ravelry group, and interacted with me on social media. I say it every week. You guys are what makes this even more fun for me. So thank you so much. Thank you also to any podcasters or bloggers who have mentioned me this week. I've gotten pretty far behind on watching and reading, so it's been another kind of blurry week. Please forgive me for not naming names, but I am so thankful for you getting the word out about my little show here. I'm trying some new settings on my camera, so y'all let me know what you think. Having a lot of trouble with color and white balance and things like that. Hopefully it'll be better this week than last week. I played around with it a little bit before I started recording, so hopefully that will work out for us. If I didn't mention, today is Monday, March the 4th, 2013, and let's get right into the pregame report. Lots of stuff going on this week, so that makes for a good show, right? My spinning wheel has been going and my needles have been clicking. I've got lots to talk about in the first period, developing play. I'm going to announce the winner of the Valentine's Yarn Along in the first intermission, and I'm also going to announce a new craft along, so that will be fun. Going to, in the second period training room, talk about my fitness tracking. I've decided to continue with that, so I'll talk about that. And also, I had a question on the Ravelry group about hand, arm, and shoulder health. She wondered if I could share some of my tips for that, since I work as a massage therapist and also knit and crochet and craft a whole lot. I'm going to share in the second intermission a podcast that makes me laugh and smile every time I watch it. And this is, I know most of you have heard of this one. It's The Fat Squirrel Speaks, and I wanted to share it mostly for Mom's benefit because I would love for her to be able to get those laughs every week like I do. And in the third period, Hockey Talk, I'll talk about the bittersweet hockey week that was for me, and also continue the Hockey 101 segment. And in the post-game chatter, I will talk more about my trip to Atlanta and also have a quick update about Mom. So there's always more than that when I get into the actual show, but let's go ahead and get into it. Time to get into the first period. And we're in the zone with some developing play here. This is where I talk about my fiber arts projects. I've got a lot of those going on right now. So just to get started, I will let you all know that I have put the Beekeeper's quilt and the True Love socks on the bench for the week. I didn't work on those at all, so you will probably see them again next week if I pull them out. But I have several other things I've been working on, so let's show you those. First of all, the project I have been working on almost since I started doing this show is my Mork sweater. Still working on the front. This is Mork by Julia Farwell Clay. It will look like this when it's finished. And I am using Barocco Ultra Alpaca in colorway 6281 Redwood Mix. And I'm using US size 6 4.0 millimeter needles. And here's what I have on the front. Oops, that's the back. Well, here's the back. I have the front over here as well. But this is what the back looks like finished. And pardon me just a moment, it has fallen down. Okay, here is what I'm working on currently with Mork, the front of the sweater. I hoped I would get the front done this week, and I almost did, but other things have been taking my attention, so I didn't quite get there. Here is the front of the sweater. Right there. You see where I have divided for the V-neck here. Here's the left shoulder and the right shoulder. I just have a few more rows on this right shoulder to get through, and then I'll be onto the sleeves, and those will be probably simple enough that I can watch hockey while I knit them, so that will mean they'll get done faster. The knitting that I have to concentrate on is usually the knitting that takes me the longest to finish, just because I can't do other things, and I'm one of those people, I always have to have my mind occupied somehow. Not always, but often. So there's the front of Mork. I'm loving how this is turning out, and I can't wait for it to be done. It will probably get done just in time for the weather to get warm enough that I can't wear it anymore. Today, however, it is about 22 degrees with a wind chill of 12, so I wish I had this to wear today. Speaking of what I'm wearing, I am wearing a hat that I knit. This is what I usually wear to hockey games. And by the way, I'm wearing my Checkers shirt today. It's signed by, oops, wrong side, signed by Zach Dalpe. You all heard the story of that last week a little bit. And Checkers play the Oklahoma City Barons tonight, so I'm all decked out in Checkers gear. Now let me tell you about this hat. This is the Gifty Slouchy Beanie by Tanis Gray. And I knitted this hat with yarn that I used to make the sweater that I wore 2 weeks ago. My storm warning sweater, which was the Melrose Peacoat, actually. And this is the same yarn. It was just what I had left over, and I thought, well, what better thing to do than to make a little hat? And this is one of my favorites. It's bulky yarn, so it's pretty warm, which is good because I am in my craft room, as always, and there is not central heat in my house. We have one large monitor heater, and it does a really good job of heating the whole house, but when I have the door closed in here, I don't have any heat, so the hat's keeping me warm. Okay, the next project on my knee is the Knit Sampler Afghan that I'm doing as a knit along with the Apple Blossom and You podcast. And I finished the second square for February in time. I was happy because I almost forgot to do it. This is square number 4 for the Afghan. This is the Knit Sampler Afghan by Coats & Clark. I'm using Red Heart Soft yarn. I think that's upside down. And this square is done with the navy colorway and the grape colorway using US size 8. That color's turning out, oh, pretty close. Purples are difficult. This is a US size 8 5.0 millimeter needle. So it's like a grape jelly purple and a navy blue. And I really like this one. This one was fun. And it's already time to get into starting the next square, so I need to get on that. I haven't started the next one yet, but it should be fun as well. These squares are great little instant gratification type projects. It only takes a couple of evenings usually to finish a square, and then you can say, oh, you feel like you're accomplished because you finished something. And the third project on my needles is another hat for Mom. So Mom, if you don't want to see it, look away for just a little bit. You can, probably 30 seconds or so. I don't mind if you see it though. So this one fell down too. Hang on just a moment. Alright, sorry about that. I leaned down out of the screen and bashed into things and made all kinds of noise, so y'all are glad I paused that. So the third project on my needles, again, look away, Mom, if you don't want to see, but I don't mind if you do want to see it. This is the Not Just for Chemo Reversible Cloche by Mary Keenan. And I am knitting this with Bernat Satin Plum Mist Heather. Plum Mist Heather is a colorway, obviously. This is on US size 4, 3.5 millimeters, so it's a very tight knit. This is what I have so far. You can see the brim down here is done in a linen stitch, and it's reversible. So the back of the linen stitch looks really nice too. And then the body of the hat is done in stockinette, which if you reverse obviously will be this reverse stockinette side. So depending on how sensitive Mom's head is once she loses her hair, she could wear it one way or the other. My concern with knitting these caps for Mom right now is that when she is in the heaviest part of her chemotherapy treatment, it's going to be high summer in Raleigh, and it gets hot. It is hot in Raleigh, not abnormal for the temperatures to be up at 100 degrees. So this is an acrylic yarn, so she may not get much wear out of this particular one, and it's also a worsted weight, so it's a heavy, warm yarn, and depending, you know, I guess in Raleigh everybody has air conditioning, so she may get some use out of it just because it's cold. I'm sure that cold air blowing on your head doesn't feel good. But I'm more into looking for the lighter weight acrylics and cottons. But I saw this pattern, I thought it was really cute, so I wanted to knit it up for her. So that is the Not Just for Chemo reversible cloche. And that's all I have currently going on my needles right now. So I have some Spinorama this week. I almost finished this as well, but not quite. There's just so much that I want to accomplish right now that some projects just get a little bit of love, and this one, I have one finished skein of the 4 ounces of the BFL silk from Friends in Fiber. It's in the Bollywood Bash colorway. This has not been washed or snapped or thwacked or whatever you want to call it yet. So it's going to bloom out a little bit, I'm sure, when I do wash it. And this is the first skein. I've got another bobbin still on the wheel that I need to ply up, and then we'll wash them, and next week I'm sure that'll be done. So here it is. I'm super happy with this. I am thinking that this is going to come out to be a fingering weight yarn, which is really good because I've never gotten a fingering weight 3-ply before, not with a Navajo ply or with a traditional 3-ply. So I'm excited. If this really does turn out to be fingering weight after I've washed it, I'll probably knit a shawlette or something like that with it. I'm really excited. The colors are coming out on here pretty close. They're a little bit warmer on the camera than they are in real life. It's not quite so golden in real life. The pinks pop out more in real life. I'll put a picture in right here. So there you go. There's 200 yards here. So that is really exciting. And the other bobbin is actually larger. It's more full. So I think I'm going to get more than 200 yards on this next bobbin. So I will update you on that next week. Just a quick little addition here. I forgot to show you the other bobbin of singles that I'm going to ply this week from that Bollywood Bash colorway. So that's a pretty full bobbin, and the colors are showing better when I kind of tilt it this way. Maybe it will when I tilt it this way too. Yep, that's even better. So there is that. And here is a photo too of the fiber before it was spun. I always love to see that. All right. I have 2 She Shoots, She Scores this week. So that's exciting. Sorry guys, I didn't get the hat trick this week. But both of my finished objects are hats, and they are both for Mom. So Mom, you can skip on ahead to the first intermission now if you don't want to see these hats. But if you do, then hang out right here and you can see them. All right, let's see here. First one is the one I was working on last week, called Soft Light by Suvi Simola. I love this hat. and it's in a kind of unconventional color. It's not one that I would usually gravitate toward, and I'm pretty sure it's not one that Mom would usually gravitate toward. So she may decide she doesn't want to keep this one, which is okay. I can knit her another one in a different color because I think she will love the design of it. Pardon my hat head here, because I want to put it on for you so you can really see it. This is Soft Light by Suvi Samoa, like I said. It's knit with Knit Picks Simply Cotton Sport in the Golden Heather colorway on US 2.5 3.0 millimeter and US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. Alright, let's see if we can get this on here. Okay. It's a little bit of a slouchy hat. This yarn, by the way, is just luscious, and I'm so sad they don't make the colored versions of it anymore. So there is the motif on the hat. I think it looks like an angel, and my mom loves angels. So when I saw this hat pattern, I just had to have it, and it was given to me by a dear, dear person on Ravelry, and so thankful to her. So there is the Soft Light. So the other project is another hat from Mom. Get my notes here. It is the Plain Rolled Brim Hat by Kramer Yarn Shop. Now this hat, Mom doesn't like for things to squeeze her head. This hat may be a little too small, or the style just may not be to her liking. So again, if she doesn't like it, I've told her she can give any of the hats that she doesn't like to other patients where she is receiving her chemo. So none of my work will be in vain. But I loved the colors of this yarn. It's really hard to see. It's just hard for the camera, I think, to pick up on this is a very subtle colorway in real life. This is the Cascade Cherub DK, color 512. I know that's real descriptive, isn't it? But to me, it's just very soft greens and blues with a little bit of a darker green. That's those lines that you see in there. I'll put a picture in here. And that's a closer representation of the color. So here's what it looks like on. Ooh, there we go. I think it's cute. And it's super, super soft. If you all have never tried the Cherub DK, it's nice. It's a nylon acrylic blend, I believe. And it's a lighter weight, so hopefully it'll be cool enough for her in the summer in Raleigh. You can roll the brim a little bit more if you want it rolled up. Or you can roll the brim down if you want. Cover everything up. So I like it. All right, that is it for the first period. Let's get on into the second. Actually, let's get into the first intermission. So in the first intermission today, we have a first for the show. The Valentine's Day Yarn Along ended on February 28th, and I have drawn a winner for the 6 rose quartz stitch markers. Let me show those to you. There we go. Those are the 6 stitch markers that I made for a prize. And we had several people. Oops, there were only 5 showing in the shot there, but there are 6. One of them had slid down to the end of the needle. So we had several people enter in the Yarn Along, and it was really fun. I love the colors and the symbols of Valentine's Day. I love hearts, and I love the reds and pinks and whites. So that was a lot of fun for me to see all of your finished objects. Thank you all for participating. I did the random number generator using the thread on the group. And what I did was I kept generating new numbers until I landed on one of the finished object posts. What happened was I landed on number 37, and that is El Mikal. That is Linda from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Linda. Please drop me a private message on Ravelry and let me know your full name and your address so I can send those right out to you. Congratulations. So we finished one knit along and it's time to start another for the month of March. This is going to be a cow-cow, a knit along, crochet along. And we're going to call this the the March Mad Hatter knit along. So what we're doing is we're knitting hats. I'm knitting a lot of hats right now, as you can tell, just so Mom has a good selection to pick from. And so I figured it would be fun if you all would knit along with me. Just not hats for Mom, but just any kind of hats. And that way I can see what kind of hat patterns there are out there and maybe get inspired to do some different ones. The Cow will end on March 31st. I will draw the winner. I'll close the thread when I wake up on April 1st. And I'll draw the winner before the next podcast after that. So the prize will be announced probably in the next podcast. I haven't quite come up with it yet. It may just wind up being a Ravelry pattern, but I'm going to look around and see what I can come up with, something a little more creative maybe. And if you donate your hat that you knit, then you get a double. You can put 2 posts in the thread. I'll do the drawing the same way as the February knit along was done, where I will do the random number generator until I land on a finished object. Or if you donate your hat, what you'll do is you'll put 1 post with your finished object and a picture, and then 1 post that says the charity that you donated your finished object to. And it can be any charity. You can donate to you can donate to the Remembering Remy Drive, and that will count. You can donate to your local NICU for preemie hats. You can donate to a local homeless shelter. You can donate to a local cancer center. Lots and lots of places take hats. I love to knit hats for Pine Ridge Reservation, and if you go to the Bundles of Joy group on Ravelry, you can learn more about that. All kinds of places you can donate hats. Now, if you just knit a hat for yourself or just to give as a gift to somebody, then that will count still as 1 entry. And please post your finished objects because I want to see all the hats. All right, that's exciting. I can't wait to get started on that, and I will see what I can come up with for a prize. If that wasn't clear, I apologize. I'll put the rules, of course, on the first post in the thread on Ravelry. Welcome to the second period and my training room. I have gotten back on the horse as far as tracking my fitness goes, so I know I talked about that last week, that I was definitely going to do that again. I have restarted my journey to Rivendell. If you haven't been watching the podcast from the beginning, then what I'm referring to is the aonchallenge.net. Now, last week when I checked that website, it was down, but you could still find the Journey to Rivendell. What it is a chart where it shows Bilbo Baggins's actually it was Frodo Baggins, his journey from Bag End to Rivendell in the Lord of the Rings, and it breaks it down by mile. So I have made a new chart. This was inspired by Sarah, Apple Blossom SF on Ravelry. Hers is very similar. She did a spreadsheet, and all she has to do is color in the square for each mile she completes, and voila, that's it. I thought that was brilliant, so I don't have to sit and do math and all kinds of crazy stuff. I know, it seems silly that that bothers me, but it does. So here is my new fitness tracking chart. Here we go. Oops. Like I said, I previously had finished the first day and earned my new pajamas that I showed last week on the podcast. But I went ahead and started over just so I could start with a fresh slate. So the way this chart works is each mile of the journey has its own square. At the end of each day on the chart that came from aonchallenge.net, that's where I get my prizes. So when I get to 18 miles here, I hope I'm not making anybody seasick. It's hard to see this. Let me just put my finger right there. So yes, when I get to 18 miles, then the 18 in parentheses means I get to spend $18 on something I want. So basically, every mile I complete, I earn $1. Um, my guess is when I get to this first 18-mile mark, I'm going to buy myself a braid of fiber because my fiber stash is getting a little bit sparse now. I haven't purchased any in a while. I've got maybe 2 or 3 braids of pretty colored fiber and some natural colors. So I would like to bulk that up just a little bit. So yay, it's good to be back on track with that. I had a question on the Ravelry group. Deb C. Quilts on Ravelry asked if I would share some of my tips for hand, arm, and shoulder health, since she knows that I'm a massage therapist. And so I'm pretty hard on my shoulders and elbows and wrists and hands. And then I come home and knit, so she wanted to know my tips and tricks. I'm going to share a few of those with you today. Now, part of it, I'm sure, is good genetics. I've just got good, strong hands and arms and shoulders. But I do have things that I do every day to help ensure that I don't injure myself. The first tip, and I've mentioned some of these before in former podcasts, but it always bears repeating. My first tip always is to listen to your body. If you're feeling pain or discomfort, then you need to either modify what you're doing or you need to put it down for a while and take a rest. No client is worth injury to me because once I'm injured, I can't work. I never will hurt myself to please a client. It's just not worth it. There are limits that I will go to. There's a certain level. If I feel any pain or certain kinds of discomfort when I'm working, then I'm just not the massage therapist for that person. In a like vein, for those of you who are fiber artists, there is no project that is worth injury. These repetitive stress injuries that we can get doing our crafts that we love so much, they're not a walk in the park to recover from. Any of you out there who have had carpal tunnel syndrome, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, rotator cuff issues, you know it's just not worth going down that road, and the recovery can be long and arduous and painful. So it's better to be preventative instead of wait until you're hurt and then try and fix it. So that's just the way, that's my philosophy on crafting and on my work. The other thing that I do every day, the second tip I have, is it's very good before you sit down to start knitting or before I start to work, both of these things for me, I will warm up my hands and stretch them out. Now, because I'm a massage therapist, I am not qualified to show you stretches as a massage therapist because of liability. It's not in my scope of practice to do that sort of thing. I will show you what stretches that I do, but you need to understand that these stretches may not work for you. If you try them, I would prefer if you would talk with someone whose scope of practice does include stretching, physical therapist, yoga teacher, personal trainer. These people can show you stretches and help you know the correct range of motion for these stretches. But I will show you what I do. Don't try this at home, folks. You know, I have to cover my own liability. So, okay. What I do before I start my day is when I get to work, I will do a stretch. Just put your arm out. I just put my arm out straight like this and bend the hand down like that. Just to where I start feeling it. It doesn't hurt. If, as always, everything I've ever said on this podcast, if it hurts, don't do it. You just want to feel a little stretch, but no pain. So I do that one. I wiggle my fingers around. This one's a little more complicated to show. So I've got my arm straight out here. Turn your palm away from your body. Take your other hand. Grab a hold of your palm, grab a hold of your hand like this. And then just pull it into your body. You're just pulling it in towards your heart. Again, this shouldn't hurt. If it hurts, don't do it. And it's a very gentle stretch, like that. And then I did martial arts for years. So I do a little bit of a Tai Chi type of warm up with my hands before I start. And basically, that entails basically doing like a figure eight with my hands. Looks like you're conducting an orchestra. Just do some figure eights, gentle figure eights like this. And then you want to reverse it and try and go the other way, which is not as easy as it sounds. I'm probably not going the other way, am I? There we go. But the idea is just to get that synovial fluid in your joints moving, get those muscles warmed up a little bit. And also, I always do some shoulder rolls like this. And then go the other way. Y'all see these on workout videos all the time and stuff like that. So you can do them reversed or opposite sides, whatever you're feeling. It kind of warms up the spine a little bit too. And I do most of these standing up, but you know, I don't have the setup here to really show you exactly what I do. Just move things, you know, shake it out a little bit. So that's what I do before I start doing a massage. If I'm going to sit down for a marathon knitting or spinning or crocheting session, I do the same thing. And I also stop and take breaks and do some of those movements and stretches and things. Another good stretch is to stretch out the pectoral muscles in this area. Find a door frame, grab a hold of it, kind of turn your body this way. You'll feel it through here. You can do that on both sides, obviously. And again, if it hurts, don't do it. So yeah, those are just a few things. Again, talk to your healthcare provider or your personal trainer, yoga teacher, people who actually have the scope of practice to tell you what you need and to show you how to do it in a safe manner. I like to show what I do just to give people ideas. So another thing that I am adamant about doing, especially in my massage work, is taking rest days. Now, I don't take rest days from knitting unless my hands and arms are bothering me. I will absolutely take a rest day if my hands are bothering me. But I only work a 4-day week. And to me, that working 4 days instead of 5 days a week allows me to give 100% to my clients. Every one of my clients I can give 100% to. I don't have to hold back, you know, because I'm afraid that I'll overdo it because I know I've got those rest days coming. Really important to stay on top of that. If you're feeling pain, tightness in your shoulders and your elbows, wrists, or hands because you've been knitting so much, take a rest day. I know it's hard because I am one of those obsessive knitters and you can almost never find me without a knitting project. But it's good for you. It's worth it. It will help keep you healthy. Okay. Be aware of your body mechanics when you're knitting or crocheting or spinning. If something is uncomfortable, shift your position. Make sure your body is supported. The chair that I sit in when I knit has arms just at the right level where my elbows will rest right on them. And then I can sit and knit without having tension in my upper arms. You know, if you sit, I find when I'm knitting in the car or in a chair that I'm not used to and I don't have that elbow support, I get a lot of tension up in here and it can cause problems. So another thing to think about, you can put pillows under your elbows to help prop you up. The spinning, I don't spin for as long at a time as I knit, so the spinning I haven't really quite gotten the hang of the proper mechanics yet. So I'm still working on that for me, and it's going to be different for everybody. What's comfortable for me may not be comfortable for you. And you know, the way we knit and crochet, everybody does it a little bit differently, so depending on how you're manipulating the yarn and the needles and the hooks, that's going to affect how you want to support your body when you're doing the work. When I do overdo it and I get some pain going on, I'll take rest days like I had said before, but I'll also do some ice ice or heat or contrast therapy. And I'll talk a little bit more about those next week. Again, as a massage therapist, I'm not qualified to prescribe this for anybody, but these are just some things that are out there. We'll put it that way. I will talk about those next week, but for now, it is time to talk about a podcast that I've been watching. So let's get into the second intermission. All right, the second intermission today is Around the League is the name of it. This is where I talk about podcasts I've been watching or blogs I've been reading or such things as that. And this week I wanted to talk about the podcast I watch every week that never fails to make me laugh and or smile. And most of you all have probably heard of this already. In fact, she's way more famous than I'll ever dream of being in the knitting world. But I wanted, especially Mom, to check out this podcast because it makes me laugh and smile. It is called The Fat Squirrel Speaks, and I'll put a link here along the bottom so you can find it easily. It'll also be in the show notes as always. The Fat Squirrel Speaks is hosted by Amy Beth. She lives near Indianapolis, Indiana. She may live in Indianapolis, I'm not sure. But I know it's at least close to that because she goes into the city a lot. And she always makes me forget my troubles. She talks about her shenanigans with her 5 or 6-year-old daughter, and it's just hysterical. Just the way that she relates to the audience is pretty funny. At first, when I watched her, I was like, whoa, I don't know about this. But then, the minute her podcast comes out every week, I have to watch it. Or at least the same day. She knits and she spins. She also dyes yarn and makes knitting bags. She just recently opened up a shop to sell those things, and they look like really cool products. But the reason I like her is because of her bubbly personality and just the things that she shares. I love the fact that she often shares knitting tips. Recently, she did a series of segments where she talked about fitting a sweater. If you're a curvier girl, how to fit a sweater to make it flatter you. I thought that was so helpful. She has throws in little things like that from time to time that are really cool. So definitely check out The Fat Squirrel Speaks. Time to drop the puck for the third period and a little bit of hockey talk. Let's start with a Hockey 101. That's the easy part. It's been a rough week for hockey. It's been a good week and a bad week for hockey, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Hockey 101, I will continue this week with what I've been doing the past several shows, and that is talking about minor penalties. We're working our way through the alphabetical list of minor penalties. I'm going to talk about 2 today, cross-checking and delay of game. Cross-checking is a penalty that they call when a player uses his stick. Take the stick in both hands and you shove somebody with it. That's cross-checking. Depending on if you injure the player that you do that to, you could get a steeper penalty, but usually it's just called as a minor. You sit in the penalty box for 2 minutes. So that's cross-checking. Delay of game is a little bit of a more complicated penalty because so many things can be called as delay of game. When they call delay of game, you get a 2-minute penalty. Like I said, minor penalty. That some of the more common reasons this penalty might be called are if you put the puck out of the playing area, if you shoot the puck over the glass into the crowd, or on purpose you put it over the glass. Then if it deflects off of you, or if a goalie is making a save and it bounces off of him and goes out of play or out of the playing area, then that's not going to count against you. But if you do it, if they think maybe you did it on purpose, of course they can't know for sure, but if they think maybe you did it on purpose, they're going to call you for a delay of game penalty. Any kind of deliberate stoppage of play, if you cover the puck with your hand, unless you're a goalie. If you just, a lot of times, there will be scrums in the corner for the puck. Players will be fighting over the puck in a corner, and it'll take forever. I've never seen them call a delay of game on that, but I guess they could if they felt somebody was trying to slow the play or stop the play. If you deliberately knock the goal net off of its pegs, in hockey, the goals are not fixed, thank goodness, because just imagine the injuries if you ran into those, but they'll pop off of their pegs and move if somebody runs into them. If you do that on purpose, if you see the puck going toward your net and you whoop, take the goal off the pegs, they'll call you for delay of game if you do that. Let's see here. If a goalie plays the puck in an illegal area, if you remember the chart I showed a few weeks ago, there's a little trapezoidal area behind the net and behind the goal line where the goalie is allowed to play the puck. If they play the puck outside of that little area, then they will be called for a delay of game. So that is what a delay of game penalty is. There are several more reasons that this can be called, but there are so many that I'd sit here and talk about it all day if I went through all of them. So those are the more common ones that I've actually heard called. So on to a little bit of hockey talk. So if you follow me on Plurk, you know that I had kind of a rough week as a hockey fan. Both the Checkers and the Hurricanes each played a game this week that had me just shaking my head. And, you know, I don't mind when my team loses as long as they played a good game. But the Hurricanes lost on Tuesday night to the Washington Capitals 3-0. That stung. That really hurt. There's a whole history behind why that hurt. I won't get into it today because there's some other things I wanted to talk about that will take some time, and I don't want to blabber on and on and on, as if I haven't done that already. But that really hurt to lose 3-0 in Washington. And then on Friday night, I believe it was Friday night. Yes, on Friday night, the Checkers fell to the Norfolk Admirals 6-2. Now, they started the game out really well and got a 2-0 lead after the first period, and then everything fell apart, and we wound up losing 6-2. And to add insult to injury, Zach Dalpe and Andreas Nodal both received severe injuries, or at least serious injuries, from the same player. As far as I know, there hasn't been any disciplinary action on that player. Hockey is a contact sport. Injuries happen. It just seems rather suspect to me that the same sort of injury happened to both of our players from the same guy on the Norfolk Admirals. I think it was Smith, if I'm not mistaken. But both of the injuries were to the knee. Andreas Nodal, who is most of the time he plays with the Hurricanes. I was actually surprised that they even sent him down to Charlotte, but anyway, he's out for the remainder of the season. Zach Dalpe may or may not return before the end of the season, and y'all know how much I like Zach. I mean, here I am wearing his his shirt here. So that was a blow. I'm not happy. It's sad that I won't get to see or hear Zach play for the rest of the season, and here he was about to break in to the NHL level, and he gets hurt playing an AHL game, and that's always frustrating, and I'm sure Andreas Nodal is beyond frustrated to have been sent down to the minor leagues and gotten such a bad injury in the minor leagues. The thing about injuries in hockey is typically they won't tell you what is wrong with the player. They'll say, oh, so-and-so has a lower body injury or an upper body injury, and that's all you get. I guess they do this because it is such a contact sport that they don't, when the player comes back, they don't want other players to target whatever area was injured. Sad that that's even an issue, but I believe that is why they don't tell us. Now, last night, Well, over the weekend, the Hurricanes played the Florida Panthers and beat them both times, 2 nights in a row, which is awesome since the Panthers beat us on the season opener. So it's always good to get that, quote, revenge. However, the first game on Saturday night in Raleigh, the Panthers goalie got hurt, and I don't know, I think it wound up being a groin pull for him, and they had to bring in their backup goalie to finish the game. You never want to see a goalie go down, especially when there hasn't really been any contact. You know it's bad news when a goalie goes down, there hasn't been any contact. Um, it's really hard on your body to be a professional athlete, period. But if you watch these goalies play, they are like Gumby. They have to be strong, but they have to be flexible at the same time. And they do crazy acrobatic things quickly. They're dropping into the splits at the drop of a hat. They're, going into the butterfly, which is, look it up on Google. I'll try and link to something that shows you what the butterfly position is. But that's very hard on your knees. So I never like to see any goalie go down. It's my favorite position to watch in the game. So I was not happy to see Theodore go down in Florida's net when they were in Raleigh. And then last night when we played the Panthers in Florida, Cam Ward went down with an injury. It was another one of those, there was no contact, he just went down in the net. Now he's our starting goalie. We had Dan Ellis backing him up because Dan Ellis had the flu. Dan Ellis was not feeling well. He was supposed to start this game in Florida, and Cam Ward had to take the start because Dan Ellis wasn't feeling well. Well, when Cam Ward got hurt and couldn't continue to play, Dan Ellis had to come in. And you guys, he looked just, I'm sorry if I'm sure Dan Ellis will never ever see this, but he looked like death. I mean, he was kind of gray. He looked awful, and he came in and we won the game. He held the fort for us. And after the game, it was so sad to hear him in the post-game interview. He still looked awful, the gaunt face and everything. And he said, I was supposed to start this game, and Cam Ward did me a favor by starting it for me. And to see him get injured doing a favor for me made me feel guilty. Well, I don't think he used those exact words, but you could tell he was feeling guilty about it. And he said that it made him want to return the favor and, win the game for Cam. My guess was when Cam went off, just watching the way he was moving and everything, that he had a groin injury. Now, groin, people wonder what does that mean? When you hear that an athlete has a groin injury, that's like in the upper inner thigh. And those take forever. I injured mine when I was doing martial arts at one point. It probably took 6 or 8 months before I felt totally normal again. Of course, I was just in college and I didn't have trainers and massage therapists and everybody trying to get me back on my game, but it took a long time for that to heal. So I was seriously worried that Cam had a groin injury and would be out for a while. Well, I was right to be worried. It was not a groin injury. They actually told us what was wrong with Cam this time instead of saying just a lower body. He has a 3rd-degree MCL sprain. That's your knee. And he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, which brings us basically to the end of the regular season. So that's not good. I feel terrible for Cam. I feel terrible for Dan Ellis. Because it seems like he has some guilt about this. He shouldn't. That's just the game. You can't play when you're sick. He was obviously ill. It would have been kind of dumb to put him in to start when he was feeling that way. So anyway, this creates all kinds of interesting scenarios. Obviously, Cam's not going to be able to play. Cam Ward, by the way, is my favorite hockey player of all time, and the first hockey player that I singled out as being a favorite. But since he can't play, Dan Ellis will be our starting goalie. He's ready. He's been very, very good for us in a backup role so far this year. He's going to rock it. It's going to be fine. But we need to call somebody up from the minor league to back him up, because you've got to have two goalies in case something happens. So they will call Justin Peters up from the Charlotte Checkers, I'm sure. And Justin Peters, he's got it. He's ready. He's been excellent for us in Charlotte in net. This is going to bring John Muse to the starting goalie position in Charlotte, and I'm hearing that they're going to call up Rob Midori. I hope I'm saying that correctly. From our even minor league team, the Florida Everblades. They're going to call him up from Florida to back up John Muse in Charlotte. So I'm more worried about the goaltending situation in Charlotte than I am in Raleigh. I think we've got it covered pretty well in Raleigh. John Muse, from what I've seen, either plays incredibly well or just completely flops. So that makes me nervous. And the goalie we're calling up from Florida just is a complete unknown to me. So that's going to be interesting going down the stretch. We are just a couple of months away from playoffs for both leagues. So this was not a good time for this to happen. It never is a good time for it to happen, but it's going to make us really nervous. And like I said, it's just the way the game happens sometimes, so we'll see. Okay, I'll stop blabbering about hockey now, and we'll get into some post-game chatter. All right, we're going to start the post-game chatter with just a little 1-minute update about Mom. If you watched last week, you know that my mom has been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she had her chemo delivery port put in on Friday. The procedure went fine, and there were no complications or anything. Chemo delivery port is just a port they put under your skin, under your clavicle. It makes the chemo treatments a lot easier because then they don't have to go finding your veins and starting IVs and everything. They can just put it right through the port and not have to deal with all of that. So Wednesday, which is 2 days from now, Mom will have her first chemotherapy treatment, and then she'll have one every 3 weeks for 9 treatments, which will put us about in early August to get through chemo, if all goes well. So here's hoping all goes well, and we are all in good spirits. Mom especially is. She is raring to go and show this cancer who's boss. So that's it for the 1-minute mom update. So as promised, I wanted to talk about my upcoming trip to Atlanta. And I've been putting this off because of reasons that I will discuss here in just a moment. I am going to Atlanta St. Patrick's Day weekend with my husband, and we're going to a convention called Furry Weekend Atlanta. Now, before you run away screaming, I wanted to talk a little bit about the furry fandom. If you've heard of this before, either you are part of the fandom or you may have seen some of the not so flattering portrayals of it in popular media. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about what the fandom is and what the fandom isn't, and then I'll talk a little bit about why I'm so excited to go to this con. So several years ago, I'm not sure how many years ago, probably 10 by now. Time just goes by so fast. Several years ago, there was an episode of CSI that took place at one of these furry conventions. And let's just say that this was not, well, CSI is never family friendly, but let's just say they put the furry fandom in the worst possible sexually deviant light that they could. Now, while there is some tiny element of that, especially back then, it was just a tiny element of that in the fandom, that is not what furry is all about. Obviously, most furries were very upset to see that episode, and now we can't even talk about, we can't tell our friend or our coworkers and bosses and things, hey, I'm going to a furry convention. We can't even say that anymore because immediately people think of that CSI episode and think that we're going to go and partake in interesting activities, shall we say. I'm trying to keep this as family friendly as possible. For me and for my husband and for most of the friends that we like to hang out with, furry is nothing more than the opportunity to get away from everyday life for a weekend and be with friends that we only get to see once a year. It's very much like a fiber arts festival in that way. You meet up with people you don't get to see very often. Um, but in the furry fandom, a lot of us have costumes that we'll put on and play, and we kind of take on different personas. In the furry fandom, I'm known as Shanti Dragon, and that's where my Ravelry name comes from. And most people, when I go to Atlanta, I'll be walking down the hall and they'll say, "Hey, Shanti, how are you?" In every other aspect of my life, everybody knows me as Emily. So you just get to go and be somebody else for a few days and get away from all of your stresses and all of your problems. And it's a lot of fun. You get to pretend. And as an adult, I'm 36 years old now, you don't get a lot of opportunity to just go and pretend and actually get to pretend with other people. So it's a lot of fun. Whatever you've heard on CSI or other shows about this fandom, um, unfortunately, since those shows have aired, it's attracted more of that kind of strange segments and feel to the fandom. But for the most part, we're all just there to have a good time. So what's going to happen is we will go to Atlanta and get registered for the con. And a lot of people have costumes, like I said, but it's not a requirement to have a costume to go to a furry con. A lot of people just come for the art, or just to hang out with people, or just to pretend, or see the sights. Believe me, it's really fun to watch what goes on at a con. Sometimes I'll go down in the hotel lobby and like sit in a corner and pretend like I'm normal and like watch everything going on and be like, "Ooh, this is crazy." But anyway, as far as the art goes, my husband does furry art, and that's just anthropomorphic art. It's sort of animals with human characteristics. I'm going to pan up just a little bit to show you what I mean by that. These are some pieces that have been done for me in the past. So hopefully you can see those pretty well. So this one right over here, I've got the same problem as everybody else now with the switched, the flipped over screen. This one right here, my husband did for me. It's actually just a blown up version of a con badge. A con badge is just a little, usually about yay big. It's got your character's picture and name on it. Looks like that, except smaller. And this was a commission that a very dear friend of mine, Eric, bought for me at a convention that we went to several years ago. These are both of my character, Shanti Dragon. So that's what I mean by anthropomorphic art. She's a dragon, but she's got human characteristics. Usually they stand on two legs and talk and walk and all that sort of thing. Kind of like Bugs Bunny. So there is what the art looks like. My husband also designs what we call fursuits. A fursuit is basically like a mascot costume. And my husband's character is named Scape the Goat, and he built this costume several years ago. Here's a picture. And I know, it's incredible. My house was literally wrecked for 6 months while he made this. We live in a tiny house. The only studio space we have is where, at the time he was building Scape, I used this room that I'm in right now as my writing studio. So I needed my space to be quiet and alone to be able to write. I've fallen out of that a little bit in recent months, but so he had in the living room fur and foam and all of the equipment that you need to build a costume like that. And he's going through that now. He's building another costume for a friend of ours, or he's just building the head, and a friend of ours is doing the bodysuit and everything. So once again, my living room, I just have to grin and try and ignore it. It's terrible. I can't even show you a picture just because in the furry fandom, when you debut a new fursuit, a new costume, it is a coming out. You don't want images of this character to leak, especially since he's doing this costume for a friend of ours, and our friend wants it to be a surprise, when he comes out, and everybody will see this new costume and be all, ooh, ah. Um, Definitely can't show pictures of the living room because then that'll show the top secret things. And then, I have my new costume too that I still haven't shown you because even though she has the costume, yeah, I call her a she. She's a whole different persona. She has been to this con many times, but with a different owner, and my husband has helped me to kind of revamp her face a little bit and things like that. I don't want that to leak out before we get to Atlanta either. So you'll see all kinds of pictures after. I can show you this one picture right here. And that is my husband, Fox. He is sculpting the antlers for this new costume with my electric bread knife. Yes, this has happened many times before. Some guys will get a big block of wood and sculpt it with a chainsaw. My husband gets a big block of foam and sculpts it with my bread knife. I don't remember the last time that knife was actually used for bread. But anyway, I love it. I love that about him. And he comes up with the most amazing, amazing costumes. You saw what Scape looks like. So this will just be his second actual costume that he's created. Scape was the first, but he often does the artwork for other fursuit builders to work from. So it's called concept art. And it's so cool to go to a con and see, I watch him do all this concept art, and I see what it looks like. And then I go to a con and I see my husband's artwork just walking around in 3D. It's really cool. But there will be tons of pictures when I get back. I may record next week before I go to the con. I don't see why I wouldn't, but the following week I will be in Atlanta on the day that I usually record. And if there is an episode that week, it will probably not be a normal episode. I may try and record some segments in the hotel room. Definitely, I'll do some recording of the shenanigans that go on at this con so y'all can understand better why in the world I would want to do this. And if any of you are brave and would like to come out to, I don't know honestly if this will even work out, but if anybody would like to come and meet me maybe one evening while I'm in Atlanta, we're getting there Thursday and leaving the following Monday. And that's, like I said, St. Patrick's Day weekend. We're staying at the Westin in downtown Atlanta. Parking is an issue, I believe. But if there's anybody that wants to try and come and meet me in the hotel lobby, maybe we could have a little sit and knit and chat. That would be fun. The best way, I think, probably to pull that off would be to contact me on Plurk or Twitter. I'm not going to have internet access while I am in Atlanta. It's like $15 a day to have Wi-Fi at the hotel. So I'll just have my phone, and I don't feel comfortable giving out my phone number just to people I haven't met. It's just something that I'm a little wary of. So probably the Twitter or the Plurk private messages. Email would work fine too. And my email address is always at the end of the show in the credits, so you can contact me there. But if you're in the Atlanta area, it would be really fun to meet up if I could possibly find the time and share with you some of the crazy shenanigans that go on at at these cons. So anyway, I have babbled on and on and on. I'm afraid this is going to be a long episode. So I better wrap it up. Until next time, may all of your fiber arts projects and your favorite hockey teams stay out of the penalty box. Bye bye.